This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Calendar. Let's be real. Running a household can be exhausting and chaotic. And finding the perfect Mother's Day gift, it's not exactly a no-brainer. Until now. The Skylight Calendar is the best way to organize the family and give everyone, especially mom, some peace of mind to enjoy the things that matter most. The Skylight Calendar is a smart, touchscreen calendar that keeps track of and manages the chores, dinner planning, groceries, and to-dos for the whole family. The Skylight Calendar automatically syncs each family member's digital calendars and displays them all together on one color-coded touchscreen. It even doubles as a digital picture frame, so you can finally share all those special moments that are just sitting on your phone. As a limited-time offer for our listeners, get 15% off your purchase of a Skylight Calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/easy. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/easy. Get 15% off your Mother's Day purchase now at skylightcal.com/easy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I'm your host for Yoga Birth Babies, and today we're going to talk about comforting touch during labor, hands-on massage, counter pressure, even what to do if that doesn't work, comforting touch for the birthing person. And I have Yiska Obadia for that, and she's amazing. It was a really fun conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about Yiska. She's a passionate teacher and healing arts practitioner with over 25 years experience as a massage therapist, acupuncturist, and birth doula. In 2016, Yiska created Comforting Touch for Birth to teach doulas and parents-to-be how to skillfully provide hands-on support for birthing people. It's a fantastic conversation. As we were speaking, I kept thinking, this is such good information for partners, for the birthing person, for doulas. It's really a kind of a one-size-fits-all podcast and so important. Before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to Kristen Bremer Home. She left a review on Apple Podcasts. She says, "Great podcast for pregnancy. I only wish I found it sooner. It's refreshing and honest and feels non-judgmental. She covers a lot of details without making you feel overwhelmed or unprepared." So thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate you taking the time to leave a rating and review. I truly appreciate it. So if you're out there and this podcast is speaking to you in some manner, please, if you have a moment, to leave a rating and review. It helps people find us. Before my conversation with Yiska, I'm so excited to announce that we are starting to get more of our offerings online as the podcast grows and grows and people are wanting to be in the community, which is so exciting. I love growing this supportive community. We had to find a way to take what we offer at PYC outside. So we have a few online courses. We have one coming up, VBAC. Is it right for me? So if you're thinking of having a VBAC, we have Stephanie Heinzler coming in to talk about your VBAC options. You can do that through Zoom online. You can check out our website. It's there. We have another one about healing after cesarean. And then we have a 4-class, 4 1-hour prenatal yoga classes with all different focuses that you can do your yoga at home. And this is great. So again, if you're not in the walls of our New York City studio, you can still be part of our community. And then we also have some people that are teachers and want to grow their experience. And if that's you, we have our teacher training. We have one spot left for New York, but then we will be in Richmond, Virginia this spring, and then we'll start it all over again next year. So check that out. In the summer, we're going to have a postnatal and baby and me teacher training. And of course, as I mentioned online, we've got what we call Who's Afraid the Pregnant Yogi. And that is for the yoga teacher that may need a little bit more support when the pregnant student walks into their room. So such amazing offerings. And I'm just so honored to bring them to you. Okay, now before we get to the conversation with Yiska, we're going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, please enjoy.
This podcast is sponsored by Skylight Calendar. Let's be real. Running a household can be exhausting and chaotic. And finding the perfect Mother's Day gift, it's not exactly a no-brainer. Until now. The Skylight Calendar is the best way to organize the family and give everyone, especially mom, some peace of mind to enjoy the things that matter most. The Skylight Calendar is a smart, touchscreen calendar that keeps track of and manages the chores, dinner planning, groceries, and to-dos for the whole family. The Skylight Calendar automatically syncs each family member's digital calendars and displays them all together on one color-coded touchscreen. It even doubles as a digital picture frame, so you can finally share all those special moments that are just sitting on your phone. As a limited-time offer for our listeners, get 15% off your purchase of a Skylight Calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/easy. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/easy. Get 15% off your Mother's Day purchase now at skylightcal.com/easy.
Good morning, Yiska. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm so
happy to be talking to you.
I know. I love that I'm glad that you remember that we met each other it was like 4 or 5 years ago at a Spinning Babies workshop.
Yeah, something like that.
I went all the way up and I was like, I'm going to Long Island for this. This is fantastic. Well, I'm glad that we got able to reconnect. So I think it's such an important topic, comfort for birth and life. Let's face it, who doesn't need a little bit of comfort for life? And I love that this is really your background, your foundation, really kind of your cup of tea. So I guess to help start the conversation, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the birth world and the massage world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I became a massage therapist as my first profession, like even before finishing my bachelor's. I just dived in. I was living in another country and somebody said something about, oh, you have good hands. Why don't you try that? And I took a class and I loved it. And it was a perfect fit. And then basically after about doing that for like 5 or 6 years, my friends started becoming pregnant, and one in particular asked if I would attend her birth. So she thought that she would really like massage during labor. And at that point, this is back in 2001, and I'd never heard of doulas. I don't think she even referred to it as a doula. She may or may not have known what doulas were. But in any event, she invited me to come, and I did. And it was it was a home birth, and it was an amazing experience. And I remember the midwife being like, oh, wait, you've never done this before? And I was like, no. She's like, you're not a doula? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you should be, and it really was just like one of those things that was just a perfect fit. I think the next weekend I signed up for my doula training, and it took some time to, I was finishing acupuncture school at the time. So it really wasn't until I moved back to New York in about 2007 when, acupuncture and massage and doula work kind of came together. And then, I sort of was just doing my own thing. And at some point, a doula friend asked if I would teach her some massage stuff. And I was kind of surprised at the beginning when she mentioned that, because I thought like she was way more experienced than I was, and I didn't realize that I had something that I could offer. But, I said, bring another doula and I'll think about what I'm doing and I'll show you what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll be something new for you. And we did that, and she said, oh my, you have to teach this to doulas. So it was really a great process of sort of being able to start identifying what it was that I was doing, what made the difference between, what felt good for my clients versus when maybe I saw a partner trying to, well-intentionally do something that wasn't working for their partner. What were some of the distinctions that I could bring from my experience so that partners could be more successful consistently and doulas could be successful more consistently with how they were offering their own comforting touch.
I laugh when you say that, because during my second labor, my husband tried to massage me. I don't know how, and this happens a lot when he tries to massage me. I don't know if it's how he's placing his hands or he's just much taller than me, but he does it. He tries to get my traps and neck area, and he somehow gets his thumbs around my throat, and he's just choking me. I just remember not comforting. And I remember leaning against my dresser and turning around like, get your hands off me. And he got so upset. And again, I know the intention was to be supportive and loving, but yeah. And as a doula, I've seen that too. Like a lot of partners, they have the best intention, but it's foreign to them. And what a great thing that you have this like perfect trifecta of care. I mean, acupuncture, massage, and being a doula. It's an exciting combination. So let's go into why massage and touch and counter pressure is so effective as pain relief during labor. And let's also say during pregnancy, I always encourage my clients, my students, that if their partners are learning this, why not practice? Practice during pregnancy.
Oh, definitely 100%. I mean, most of the things, because a lot of the times when I teach, the expectant parents, not just when I teach the doulas, but when I teach expectant parents, I mean, a lot of the things that we do just feel amazing during pregnancy. So I tell people to practice. It's good quality time to be with each other. It helps you feel also more confident that, you can bring what you've been practicing into birth. So yeah, absolutely. I tell people to practice everything, throughout the pregnancy. Yeah. So, and also, you were talking about just like, your partner. Most of what I teach, I even started to teach just couples massage classes, like even outside of pregnancy and birth, because many of the principles are consistent, so a lot of things we'll talk about are specific to birth, but a lot of the things that are just comforting for people are comforting touch, no matter what the context.
Yeah, it's good for relationship building. Yeah, so let's talk about why this is so effective during labor.
Yeah, so basically, there's something called the gate control theory of pain, which is that in any moment in time, we have a certain number of sensory receptors in our nervous system to register sensation of any kind. So the idea is that it's kind of like an economy. If we fill, some of those receptors with not painful input, like touch or warmth or water or, these things will help kind of dilute the intensity because it's filling up some of those receptors, and then there are fewer available to register a sensation that could be painful, right? So it's just kind of this dilution effect. I mean, there are elements of, just that touch helps to produce oxytocin and helps to relax and reduce our stress hormones. So those things can also influence our experience of pain or not having pain. But I think one of the biggest things with counterpressure is that like diluting how intense it is because you're providing another sensation to fill those receptors. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Actually, we talk about gate theory a lot in teacher training. The way I talk about it is really, I mean, you described it so much more eloquently. I just say, if you've ever burned yourself and you put an ice cube on it, the cold overrides the pain. Then you think you're fine. Then you take the ice cube away and they're like, oh my God, it still really hurts. So,
totally.
Yeah. So
which is why when you, yeah.
I was saying, so my way is a little not nearly as specific. So thank you for being more specific with the gate theory. I'm going to actually make sure our teacher trainees listen to this because you're a lot more eloquent than I was in the description.
No, I think what you said totally works. It's true. It's a perfect analogy.
But that's great. So that makes a lot of sense, especially, and you mentioned warmth, so like getting in a tub or a shower. But I mean, I love that you also mentioned about the oxytocin. Can you talk more about the importance? I'm kind of throwing you in another direction, but a little more about the importance of the loving touch of oxytocin.
Absolutely. I mean, oxytocin is the hormone that makes uterus contract, and it's sort of opposed to, stress hormones are the opposite. So, the more oxytocin we have flowing, the better we're contracting, the more we're feeling connected to our partners, the more, primarily it's going to support the progress of labor in terms of having regular contractions. Mm-hmm. And then, because it's sort of the opposite of, our stress hormones and cortisol. The more oxytocin that's present, the less we're experiencing stress hormones. The more we do to reduce our stress hormones, the more oxytocin, and that, sort of love, bonding, whatever you want to call it, hormone can flourish. And that will support, labor's progress.
Yeah. And if the partner and the safety of I call it the birth posse, is circling around, really offering and kind of showering the pregnant person with love, it helps things just progress beautifully. So
absolutely.
Can you talk about the different approach to the touch offered during a contraction to the touch offered between the contractions?
Absolutely. I think, I teach a lot of things in my classes, but I think this is one of the most important ones, in particular for partners, because this is the sort of common misnomer when they think that, I can offer massage and touch and that'll be comforting to my partner. What we think of as typical massage, where like you're stroking and you're rubbing and things like that, tend to actually not be so comforting for people during contractions. Usually during contractions, people, and it kind of goes with what we were talking about, oxytocin and producing that experience of safety and feeling grounded and calming the nervous system, is that people tend to want that touch, that usually it's like a counter pressure or a way of being held firmly and steadily. They want it to be that kind of steady, firm, grounded touch, as opposed to something more massagey. So I say, if you learn nothing else, but during contractions, you offer touch that is steady, grounding, consistent, and has that kind of pressure that helps to dilute the intensity of the contractions, then you can do more relaxing things in between that are more massagey, but people tend to not like that during contractions.
That's so important. I think this is so important for partners to hear, or for the pregnant person to share, because it's like a dance between the touch. It can't be, it has to have fluctuation. I love that. So I had the pleasure of reading your Comforting Touch for Birth Guidebook for Doulas and Expectant Parents. I loved it. It was so good. That must have taken you some serious time to put together. It was really well done and long. I was going like, this has a lot.
Hopefully not too long.
No. It was juicy. It was really, really good. Like you didn't give too much, you didn't give too little. Like you really satisfied someone's desire, I think, if they want to make sure they have this kind of support. Will you walk me through the 12 guiding principles of massage during labor? And if you don't want to go through all 12, that's fine. I can fix them. But I really, just whatever you think's the most important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that, I think it would be probably too much to go through all 12.
Yeah.
But there's some that stand out. And when I think about the classic supportive move that partners often will do, where they'll kind of get pushed away during a contraction, it's kind of this like stroking or petting thing, and it just like rubs in one spot, and that's often where a partner will be like, no, they don't like it. So the first principle is actually the one that we just talked about, to distinguish between what kind of touch you're doing during a contraction and do the massaging stuff more in between. But then there's also, pace. Pace is really powerful. It's not going to apply so much when you're applying counter pressure, but if you're trying to do something relaxing in early labor, or, in between contractions, or, if you get an epidural and you want to help your partner relax their shoulders. So the pace of the touch, slowness tends to be a big key to helping somebody relax. So a lot of the times when we're trying to support people, because maybe we're nervous or we're trying to get it right, we might like speed up our touch and do it, really fast. But even if we just take our instinctive touch and slow it down and, realize that slowness is kind of that pace of relaxation. Often we're trying to encourage a person in labor to, slow their breath down. So touch can kind of mirror that same principle of, slowing things down, helping someone feel safe and relaxed, because speed, not that there's anything wrong with it, speed has its place. It can invigorate blood flow. It can be great. But if you're thinking about relaxation and calm, then slowness is going to help you accomplish that.
And it may actually help the partner too, if they're nervous about this, about the experience of, a lot of partners may have not been to birth before, and they're nervous that they can also just kind of methodically massage and maybe calm themselves down. I'm just kind of throwing that out. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, I think that, touch is a common thing that many people will kind of instinctively do to comfort their partners, but oftentimes that sort of knee jerk to touch someone is also in an effort to try to calm yourself down. Mm-hmm. So definitely, slowing that touch down is going to be helpful for both people, but also realizing that, we want to refine that knee jerk reaction to just kind of pet or squeeze or rub and help it be more deeply calming for a person's nervous system, especially during labor. So, that's when we get into more of the other principles. Like one of them is this idea of kind of like completing your touch and being really thorough with your touch, because it's kind of, I always give the analogy of painting a wall. Visually we know if it's not done properly, because you would never stop 3 inches shy of the ceiling and leave a patch of the old wall color in the middle. Like visually, we know that's not complete. It wouldn't feel good and settled. It would feel undone. But touch exists in a similar way. And so I try to guide people to be more thorough with their touch, meaning instead of just rubbing a small patch out of that knee-jerk idea, think about being more thorough. If you're at her shoulders, stroke all the way down to her hips or her butt area. Or if you're at the hips and you're going to, stroke a little bit up her back, go all the way, give a little squeeze at the top of the shoulders, come out the arms, come down the legs with your touch. These kinds of things make someone feel just very settled in their nervous system, that experience of thoroughness and completeness. And it lends itself to, a person not feeling like hankering for more, oh, could you go to the left or could you go to the right? In labor, you don't, you want to just surrender. And so, if a partner or birth professionals have that awareness in mind, they can produce a tremendous amount of comfort and ease and pleasure and satisfaction for someone just by, just being really thorough and, not skimping out anywhere on their touch and just staying in a small area.
That sounds like such good information. I totally get what you're saying. Someone could just be fixated on a small part. Yes, I love that. Yeah. What other principles do you want to offer the top ones?
Well, I think the other one that kind of goes in that similar vein, if you think about that classic move that sometimes just doesn't land right, it's not just that it's in one spot and there's just so much more surface area that wants to get tended. It's also sometimes if we do the same thing over and over again in the same spot, it starts to feel annoying. It starts to
irritating.
Yeah, exactly. It agitates the nerve endings in the area, and we start to, I think best case scenario, we sort of tune it out and we might numb out to it. But that's, not comforting. That's not pleasurable. It's not bad, but sometimes it can also be agitating and irritating. And so I'll tell people, even if you do, you want to just, forget about knowing a specific technique, but let's say you do want to rub your partner's shoulders, do your thing, but instead of just staying in the one spot and doing your move, after a little bit, stroke down the arms and, go away, come back, and then it'll be fresh again. So you can kind of stretch it out, go down the back, go down the legs before coming back up to the shoulders. And if you're doing a little shoulder massage, so those things can help it avoid being too agitating or unsettling.
And then you have a principle, I'm going to butcher this, but it was something about leaning into the groove. Was that correct?
Oh, yeah. Feeling into the grooves.
Feeling into the grooves. Okay.
Yes. And this is one of the ones that it doesn't, in birth and whenever you're like massaging anyone, you don't want to massage on bone. Most people who've had a bad massage, that's part of what was going on. Like someone
Like
was
they're
just
on the spine?
Yeah, either on the spine or on the shoulder blade. And it just hurts there. It does not feel good there. However, in the grooves in between bone and muscle, so in between the spine and the muscles along the spine, or around the shoulder blade, or in between seams that are muscles, kind of they weave together. And so when you can find a groove or a seam and follow it to the next joint, or out to the end of the limbs, that's usually where it feels amazing. There's something about, in Chinese medicine and meridian therapy, that's where all of the pressure points are. They're not like on bone. They're in the spaces, in the grooves, in the holes in between, and that's where the energy, will build up or the tension will pool. So when we come through with our touch in those spaces, it's like we're just clearing it out. It's like clearing the gutters. It's just, it can feel so refreshing and relaxing just to help release that tension. And I think that's part of the groove or the rhythm that I end up using with clients, is that during contractions, it's that counter pressure that's most relieving. And then in between, it's just something to help the nervous system release any residual tension that, their body was holding during that contraction. So even if you're trying to release all your tension during the contractions, if there's anything left, it's so helpful to do something to relax that tension. And if you're going to do that in a massage type way, you're going to want to do that in the grooves in between the bones and the muscle, not on the bone themselves.
That makes so much sense. So that during the contraction, I'll ask you about counterpressure in a little bit, but adding the counterpressure. And then we know that a lot of birthing people tend to kind of tighten up, like the shoulders might lift or they might clench their butt. And then between that could be a great place to try to relax the traps and especially, I love when you talk about the shoulder blades, like getting right in between those shoulder blades. Ooh, and clearing the gutters. I love that. I love that visual, like the gutter, that space between the scapula and the spine. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I know in your 12 guiding principles, you also talk about the person giving the massage and they're balancing their body and caring for them because, you and I both know labors can be long and you can be doing a lot of hands-on work. So what recommendations can you offer for the birth partner to keep their body balanced and to care for themselves so that they're not burnt out because their partner may really need them?
Absolutely. So I think that there's some obvious ones that have nothing to do with comforting touch, like making sure you stay hydrated, taking breaks when you need them, and being, staying nourished, getting a nap in. That's why it's so helpful to have layers of support as in your birth team. But I think as far as the, providing comfort with touch, because it can take a lot, if someone likes what you're doing during their contractions, they want it to every contraction, so this is ours. And yes, you get breaks and nature is kind, but it's still a lot. And so I think one of the simplest ideas to apply is, instead of thinking that you need to muscle your way through everything that you're offering, try to get your strength and your oomph and your power by leaning in, like using your body weight. This is how massage therapists works. It's how we can, massage many people in a day and not burn out, because we're not just massaging and pressing with our fingertips and our hands. It's with the weight of our body coming through our arms, coming through our wrists, coming through our fingertips, so that the strain isn't just on the end of that extremity, but it's being, divided throughout your whole body, and you can get so much pressure, you can get so much power by using your body weight. So that, leaning in, using your body weight, I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to protect yourself when, your partner really needs your hands-on support.
That is so important because you're right. It could be hours. And I've seen this, like something will work. And then the partner's like, my hands are getting tired after like 15 minutes. I'm like, well, we got to readjust this. I think that's, and then of course, I think about massage therapists. If they did this for hours and hours, it'd be, arthritic. They couldn't. So it's really learning. I love that, learning how to use your whole body. We're going to take a super quick break, but when we come back, I want to start to head into what you mentioned about counter pressure. All right. So we'll be right back to hear about counter pressure.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, so this I think is counter pressure. I think is unique to pregnancy and birth. Although I guess maybe not, because I know like kids that are autistic or have some behavioral issues, sometimes like a weighted blanket, like that pressure. So I guess it's not that unique. I think it's a comforting touch. So let's dive into that. Can you explain about the 4 counter pressure techniques that you like to offer?
Yeah. So the most, part of why when I did the guidebook, I realized that I couldn't just explain it with words and it had to include demonstration videos because it's hard to fully explain just verbally. Mm-hmm. But I will try to paint a picture of the main ones that I use. So there's sort of this classic, doula 101 move we call the hip squeeze. And it's basically, it's just what it sounds like. It's squeezing the hips. And this accomplishes a couple of things. There's the relief that comes through that gate control theory of pain, but it also, the hands go on either side of the hip and the fleshy part of the butt area. And what this does is it actually also creates a little bit of a flare open of the top of the hips, which increases the pelvic inlet. So the space for the opening for the baby to descend deeper into the pelvis is expanded by doing this. It's kind of like if you have a clothespin and you squeeze it, then the other side opens by, squeezing the undercarriage, the butt area, the hips area. It helps to open the top, so that expands the opening. So that's helpful from the comforting touch perspective and also sort of from the physiological perspective to support the progress of labor. So that's, I feel like, an exciting one. Also, it doesn't happen necessarily in every birth, but a lot of the times people will experience their contractions in their back, whether it's because of the baby's position or, all throughout labor, or as the baby's getting closer to coming through and they're rotating, they're putting more pressure on the base of the spine, on the sacral bone. And so pressing directly on the sacrum can be an incredible relief to just, again, dilute the intensity of that sensation as the baby's coming through. And a lot of the times, people will indicate where they want you to touch. I was just teaching the other day and one of the women in the class, she was having her second baby and we were talking about what was helpful in her first labor. And she was like, she just grabbed her partner's hand and put it on her back. She knew exactly what she wanted. So sometimes it's like that. Sometimes they'll verbally tell you. Sometimes they'll just be complaining about their back. Sometimes they might be having a hand on their own back, and that'll be an indicator that would be the place where counter pressure would be most useful. But I think the other ones that I mention, I talk about like putting pressure on the thighs because it's not a huge portion of people, but sometimes people will experience their contractions kind of radiating down their legs. Mm-hmm. And really that idea of just like putting pressure on the tops of the thighs can kind of cut that sensation as it's, reverberating down the legs, so that achiness and that pain is kind of cut off at the thigh. Same principles, but just putting pressure, with your palms generally on these areas. But sometimes, I love this one birth video that it shows a couple who the partner is doing a hip squeeze. And then there's a break in between contractions, and he goes to change the music or get a glass of water or whatever. And then the next contraction kind of comes sooner than he was prepared to get back into the proper hip squeeze position. And what he ends up doing is he ends up just like coming over to her hips and just hugging her from the side. Just like giving a big hug around her hips. And it totally worked, So I think that, I demonstrate those techniques. I talk about them in my classes, but I also encourage people to take these principles and then be creative, do the thing that works. And just back to the taking care of yourself as, the birth partner, I really try to encourage people to avoid being in like contorted, twisted, weird positions, so that if your partner needs something, pressure on their back or on their hips or whatever it is that they need, but it means that you have to be in a weird position to do it. It's one thing to do it for a contraction or two, but I really encourage people to find the thing that will, continue to work for the person in labor, but will also be something that doesn't like have you being all twisted and weird. And it might mean, like everyone just repositions a little bit, but basically it's the same thing, but you're not, squished up against a wall, or you're seated differently on the toilet so that there's room for, both of you to be comfortable.
That's so important. As a doula, I've put myself in some odd positions. So I'm like,
totally.
Okay, especially in the bathrooms. I'm like, they're so small.
I know.
I had one client that, for whatever reason, like my hands didn't feel like it was enough surface space, and she wanted the sacral press, which is one of my go-to. In fact, I would also usually pair it with a hot water bottle. Put the hot water bottle in the sacrum, and that was kind of, I had the old-fashioned kind, like it was rubber with a stopper, like not even a heating pad, like the old, like I'm talking about.
I know.
Those were great. And then I had a client make me like a little cozy for it, so it had like a little sleeping bag. It was fantastic. But for whatever reason, my hand wasn't enough. And I was leaning in, and she's like, use your feet. And so I was on a chair. She was on the ball, and I was using my feet to push into her sacrum. And I'm like, well, my legs are stronger. Okay. So we're there for like over an hour, and every contraction, I just pushed my foot into her sacrum, and she loved it. You never know what someone's going to like, which actually leads me to a question. Yeah. So I'm sure you've had those situations too. You're like, okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, totally. No, I love that. No, I haven't heard of someone asking to use feet before, but I get it. I mean, think about like a lot of, like Asian body work where they get on the table and they stand on you. I mean, yeah, it's true. Feet are powerful. Legs are powerful. Absolutely.
I remember getting an Ayurvedic massage, and they were like practically, I think they were standing on me. I think they were using their feet. It was very interesting. So I've worked with a few clients, and I remember my very first, it was probably in the first 5 clients I had. Maybe it's first 10. It was pretty early in my career. And the woman was like, I love massage. I want different smells of, different oils. And I was so new. I'm like, yes, I will do that. And I got everything. And I was new enough that I hadn't really thought of, what if this doesn't work? What if this in the moment doesn't, we didn't talk enough about alternatives. I was so fresh and new, really not knowing what I was doing in the very beginning. And so I showed up, and she was in labor, and I'm like, I got the smells you wanted. I was so proud of myself. I got the smells you wanted. And it turned out that she didn't want to be touched at all. Not anything on her body. And it was a good learning experience. I'm like, okay, we got to pivot and find something else. But what other techniques do you offer when massage or counter pressure aren't welcome? Because I was taken aback.
Well, I almost want to ask you the same question.
Oh,
so
what did
I'll
I
tell
do?
you what I think, and then I'm curious
Oh,
what
I'll
ended
tell
up
you what I
happening for
did.
you.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. It was really interesting. So the client straddled the toilet, and her partner and I were on either side, and we just sat there and held the space for her. And just verbally, when I saw she had tension, like if her shoulders hiked up and her jaw tightened, I just verbally sighed and said, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders. And it was very quiet. And it was more just little word reminders, almost like a progressive relaxation. But it made me think of like when I used to do theater and things didn't go how you thought on stage, like, oops, we got to pivot. And yeah, so it took me by surprise, but I realized, I had some skills. So yeah, so that's what I did in that moment. What about you? What would you offer?
I love that because even just listening to you describe it, I noticed that I started to feel so calm and relaxed with that starting to picture what that must have been like to just have that space and that quiet and that gentle reassurance.
It was actually
and to
pretty
be surrounded
beautiful.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And I think that at the end of the day, like, comforting touch is one tool for helping support someone's nervous system, to help them access calm, to help them relax, release tension. And so if someone doesn't want it through touch, it's just, it's exactly that. It's just the pivot to, what is it? That happened to me only once actually in my career, that someone didn't want any touch at all throughout. And of course, this was the birth that I drove across multiple states to attend. I mean, like, I think I was 8 hours away when she called with the first contraction and got there, and she thought she wanted the tub and she didn't want the tub. And she thought she wanted, me to be massaging her the whole time, and she didn't want any touch at all. Exactly what the picture you painted. But ultimately, just being there, presence is huge. It's incredibly comforting to know that you're surrounded by people who love and support you and believe in you and are there for you if you need anything, and don't need to do anything if you don't need anything, And so a lot of the times, I think about a situation where I was with a client, and the partner was really liking this certain touch all throughout her labor until a certain point. And when that changed and she kind of like pulled away from her partner and was asking that, said, don't do that. It took like a couple of contractions for him to stop doing that thing, because it was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to just keep doing the same thing he'd been doing already for hours. But, then he kind of moved away from her thinking that she didn't want him there. But I encouraged him to, come back in closer and not, it wasn't that she didn't want him there. She just didn't want that particular touch, in that moment. And, and when he came in closer again, she just gave a little nod in the moment that was exactly right. Like, she just wanted to stop doing that thing, but not go away. So presence is really powerful. And then there, sometimes people will just find their comfort in how they move their body. You mentioned, words of encouragement or reminders to relax, or, sometimes the water is going to do the job. Sometimes the warmth of a compress is going to do the job. Sometimes, as labor progresses, people can get hot, so sometimes just providing something, it might not be your hands, but it might be fanning them so that they can stay cool while they're sweating and laboring. So there are definitely lots of other things, and to not feel discouraged if, all that practicing of comforting touch measures, ends up being that your partner doesn't, want you to touch them in labor. There are plenty of other things to do that just involve presence, just involve being available for, when they do have a need, that they express that you're there for them for that.
That is such good information. I'm so excited for the community to hear this, and for new doulas to hear it too. Because, if you only have a few things that you rely on and then they don't work, it can make you feel very overwhelmed. And our job as support people is to ground the situation, not add to the hysteria. So that was such, never add to the hysteria. That's a good slogan. Don't add.
Yes, exactly.
So before we take another break, and after that break, I'm going to ask you for a tip or piece of advice for new expectant parents. Is there anything that I didn't cover? And I felt like we went through it well, but maybe I missed something that you want to make sure we talk about comforting touch before we take a break.
I can't think of anything in the moment. We'll see if
anything pops in your head.
Keep the conversation going. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Perfect. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, one piece or tip of advice you'd like to offer new or expectant parents. We'll be right back.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
We are back. Okay, you've been doing this for a long time. You have many hats you wear. I'm so impressed by that. I didn't realize the acupuncture. That is such a skill too. What tip or piece of advice would you like to offer new or expectant parents? Or let's also throw doulas in there. You work with a lot of doulas, so it's a wide open ring.
Well, it's funny. I was most surprised by my initial response when you just asked about a tip or advice for newer expecting parents. Is the first thing that came to my mind was get a doula. It wasn't. I think so. It's not even about comforting touch per se. It's more about recognizing just how much support can be needed in this process, and to not, as a new parent or partner, just feel like that's all on your shoulders, whether that's for birth or for postpartum. Allowing yourself to invite the support of a doula, I think is probably, I think, at the top of my list of advice for new parents. But if we're going to include doulas, and in this, obviously, I think the most surprising tip would be to say that actually the most important thing is to trust yourself. Kind of like what I was describing with that man who, he knew the right move, that he had been doing this perfect hip squeeze. But then at the end of the day, when that didn't work out, and he couldn't get into the right position in time, he just hugged your hips, or when that person didn't want you to touch them, or the same thing happened to me or with my clients, you just were able to actually trust yourself to know how to be in that moment. So I just think that a lot of the times, especially when we're learning new skills and people are coming and they're trying to learn how to do comforting touch and get it right, they can be way in their head. And I think that we can trust our feeling sense a lot more than we think we can. And so I love layering, the ideas of what I teach about comforting touch, what we talked about, as a lens to look through. But ultimately, our caring is the fuel. Our caring is enough. And then we could attach anything onto that caring, and it could work. And it might be a certain kind of touch, or it might be a certain way of being with them. And I do appreciate the presence of doulas for expectant parents, because they can help guide you also as a partner to, if you do feel a little bit lost. But even if you don't have that, just trust your intuition. I find that it's more often right than not.
That is so great. And that is something also to bring into the parenthood situation, trusting that that baby and you know how to care for that baby. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. So where can people find your work?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's my name. It's www.yiska, Yiska, Obadia, Obadia, And I have everything on there. I have a free videos page, where I show a sampler from the guidebook and a bunch of other little, kind of silly little homemade videos that I've made over the years. But they drive home the point, and they can teach you some techniques for even, foot massage, or other ideas for counter pressure techniques, or other ideas for how to provide comfort during labor. So there are some great free resources on there. And then I teach classes, and people can purchase the guidebook. It's all on the website. So
we'll have that in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. It was really great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
My
pleasure.
Bye.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.